I did a poll recently asking you guys what is the most popular and most iconic Tamiya of all time. Now there was various different answers. Most of you said the Lunchbox, the Grasshopper and the Hornet. This is a very difficult question to answer because a lot of people have their own opinion as to what the most popular Tamiya is. I have been into RC for over 20 years, but believe it or not, I have never owned a Tamiya. Well, today that is about to change. I have gone out and got one of the best selling Tamiya kits of all time. We're going to take a closer look, we're going to get it built, and then we'll get it out for a test run. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, and yes, I have finally gone and got myself a Tamiya kit. Now, I've avoided it for so many years. I've been into RC for over 20 years. I've just never really been interested in Tamiya. I like the more modern stuff, but we're going to give it a go. We're going to get one built up today. But which one did I go for? Before we go any further today, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who subscribes to my channel. I recently hit 10,000 subscribers, and that is a huge milestone. So the kit I've gone for today is one of the best selling Tamiya kits of all time, especially alongside the Grasshopper. And the reason for that is because they were an affordable option for people to get into RC, especially in the 80s when these were first released. Great availability and a cheap price was what made this model extremely popular, which is why it has become one of the most successful Tamiya kits of all time. So what is it then? What did I decide to go for as my very first Tamiya kit? Well, let's find out. So here it is then. This is the Tamiya Hornet, first released in 1984 and then later re-released as it was so popular with fans wanting to relive their childhood memories. So you may be wondering, why did I go for this and not the Grasshopper? Well, the Hornet does have some upgrades over the Grasshopper, including oil-filled rear shocks. It's also running a larger 540 sized brush motor, and it does also have a Lexan body. You know me, I love speed here on the channel, which is why I went for the Hornet instead of the Grasshopper. Having the slightly larger motor means it is going to be a little bit quicker out the box, but not only that, when it comes to styling, when you look at the two together, personally I prefer the look of the Hornet over the Grasshopper. That is just my opinion, but not only that, I really like the fact that this comes with spiked rear tyres, which are going to be really good when we take it off-road. This is something I have been interested in for years. I've always wanted to test out a Tamiya kit. I've never done it up until now, and I'm really hoping the Hornet was a good choice. I won't be filming the entire build process because it's probably going to take me quite a few hours to put together, especially when it comes to cutting out all the individual stickers and then applying them to the body. I'm not the best when it comes to RC bodies, so I'm not sure how it's actually going to turn out, but I'm very excited to actually make a start with this, so let's begin. Here it is then, it's finally complete. The overall process took me about 4 hours, and I have to say, I've built a few RC kits in my time, but this was definitely the easiest. The manual is a work of art. You get so many diagrams and each step is broken down into such detail that it just makes putting the buggy together a total breeze. All the parts bags are labelled and you get everything you need in the box required to finish the build. I really see now why Tamiya kits are so popular, as the attention to detail is second to none. The only thing I haven't done yet is paint the driver, but I'm so excited to get it out and test it, I simply cannot wait any longer. I'll just paint and fit the driver at a later date. I do have to apologise to any die-hard Tamiya fans out there. I know the decals aren't perfect and I just don't have the patience to sit there for hours and hours trying to apply the stickers perfectly. It was bad enough that every single sticker needed to be cut out individually and applied. Some people love that, but I'm just not a very patient person. Let's talk very briefly about the electronics, because I haven't decided to stay traditional Tamiya here. I have opted to use my own electronics. Now I've just used a cheap 60 amp brushed ESC that I had lying around, and also a 9kg metal geared servo by Etronics. So it's built and it's ready to go for its first test run. I'm extremely excited to see what all the fuss is about and how this was one of the models that shaped the future of RC cars. So let's head out and see how it performs. Right, so we've come to one of my favourite locations. This is where I film a lot of the drift videos on my channel. I'm going to go easy on the Hornet to begin with because I want to get a feel for it. This is, you know, completely different to a lot of the modern cars that I've had or have at the moment. And I just want to get a feel for it and just to see how it performs before we head over to test it out on the small dirt area. Well, straight away it just feels so bumpy compared to, you know, newer models. They just feel planted. The steering's not very good either. Now I appreciate this has got off-road tyres on it and we are on like an AstroTurf type surface. I mean, it doesn't handle bad, it's just not what I'm used to. I love how the back just bounces around a little bit as soon as you get on the throttle. That's really funny. Buggies like this are very, very important because they remind us of how simple and how basic things used to be, you know, back in the day before we had all the brushless stuff, all the super high powered stuff, you know, all your 8S stuff. This is what people were driving around, you know, they were more than happy with something like this. And in those days, well, you know, I wasn't even born when this was first released, but in those days you can imagine that if you gave this to a child or, you know, gave this to a kid to build with their parent, you know, taking it out for its first ever test run like I'm doing today would definitely put a smile on their face. So I can see why these were so popular, and they still are popular today. Performance wise, it's obviously not the fastest thing in the world. It is a little bit bouncy on the rear. The motor is, you know, sufficient. It does get you going along at a fairly decent rate. It just feels very, very clunky, and it just does have that old school vibe to it, which I really do like actually. And it's refreshing trying out a little buggy like this compared to, you know, the likes of all the modern stuff. It's actually very refreshing today to try out something like this Hornet. Not only that, but it's a nice feeling inside knowing that a few days ago this was in 1,000 different bits in its box, and we've just grown this thing from the ground up. You definitely feel very satisfied. I think what we'll do is we'll head over to the dirt area. We'll see how it performs over there, because I think that's where it's going to be, you know, a real test on how this thing performs, especially with the oil-filled rear shocks. We'll see if they actually make a difference when we get over to the dirt, because it's a little bit more bumpy compared to this flat surface that we have here. Right, so let's see how the Hornet gets on over here on this compacted dirt area. Now, straight away you can feel how bouncy it is, and you can probably see how bouncy it is. And it does have friction shocks on the front, and we are running the oil-filled shocks on the rear, but it's actually the rear that feels, you know, the most bouncy. I can't be too unfair on this buggy because we have to remember it is about 37 years old. Things have come a long, long way since this was first released. But again, like I said, just before we moved over to here, it's really, really refreshing to actually try out an older, more retro model compared to the newer stuff that I feature, you know, pretty much all the time on my channel. I shouldn't say it, but it actually performs better than some of the Chinese stuff I featured on my channel. I'm not going to mention any names or any particular models, but if you watch my videos, you'll know roughly, you know, some of the models I'm talking about. And this thing, considering this is vintage, it performs better than some of the new stuff. I think if I was to do any upgrades to this, I would probably fit the sport-tuned motor and a set of bearings. But apart from that, I think that's pretty much all you would really need. I mean, you're not going to be taking this thing to any skate park anytime soon. One final thing I want to do is see how it performs on the grass. And as you can see, it's bouncing around all over the place. Grass wasn't the intended terrain for this vehicle, but it's nice to know that it will handle it if you do run it on grass. Yeah, this is a lot of fun, and it's definitely something different. There we go then, so that was my first taste of Tamiya, and I have to say I am pleasantly surprised considering how old this model actually is. Like I said, it has actually performed better than some of the modern stuff that I've tested out on the channel. I'm so glad I finally got a chance to build and test out a Tamiya kit, and I am pleasantly surprised considering the age of this little buggy. Now, I think the question is, would I build another one? Well, at this moment in time, I don't think I would. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a great kit to put together. It was actually quite enjoyable doing the body, even though it's not perfect. I did enjoy it, and it does give it that personal touch. I think next time, if I do go for a Tamiya again, I'll probably go for one of their XB models, which I believe stands for Expert Built, and it will just save me all the time and effort because, as you know, I don't have a huge amount of time to begin with, but I have to say the process and going through all the different stages was very enjoyable, and it was a real pleasure to build and to test this model out. We're going to leave the video there today. I really hope you enjoyed seeing the Hornet in action, and I'll see you again soon on the next one. Take care.